This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome back to PTBN's NBA Team Podcast. We're doing our post-mortems on the regular season and in most of these cases the postseason for some playoff teams and teams that almost made the playoffs or are on the rise. I am one of your co-hosts, Andrew Reich. I am joined by Adam Murray. Adam, how are you doing?
I am doing good. We have gotten through the Capture the Flag group. We've gotten through teams that we're medal with. This group is just they're the basics. They're the default. We need 30 teams. Not everyone can get past the first round. Some overachieved, some underachieved. Almost everyone made the playoffs. Obviously, San Antonio didn't fall into the meddling or crappy group. Same thing with Portland. So we have to put them somewhere. They just sort of fell in because they're closer to this group than they are the bottom basement. And like I said, the meddling group had a lot of teams that should have been playoffs, should have been very far in the playoffs. So
for example, we'll talk about when we get to them. I'll just admit they'll be the first two teams we talk about. But like for Portland, they made no moves at the trade deadline, and the Spurs obviously made one big one, but it's likely to improve the team going forward. We just didn't see them in their final form because of the Wembanyama injury. But you want to just get started?
Let's get to it.
All right, we'll start with the Portland Trail Blazers. The season started out kind of the same for them, where they were just struggling bad. They had losing record in the going into the new year. They finally started finding their footing in January, and they had their best month in February. And even though they had a very poor month of March, where they probably had a lot of injuries at that point, Anthony Simons missed some time down the stretch. They actually were somewhat flirting with the play-in for about a month or two.
We can admit we were all wrong on Portland. We can admit somehow this mishmash group got everything together and they figured everything out because
I think Vegas had them at less than 30 wins.
Yeah, and we all took the under. Like we laughed and took the under because like how is that even close? And watching the start, like they had no cohesion, and then all of a sudden they made no moves. Denny Adija seems to put things together. And
he wasn't going to be an MIP candidate because the team to me wasn't good enough. But man, the last 3 months of the season, I think he averaged a double-double, like 20 and 10.
He figured it out. It's like, what are you doing starting Anthony Simons as the point guard and you're having Scoot off the bench? And
Scoot started shooting the ball a lot better. 42% doesn't sound good, and it isn't, but it's actually better than last year.
Yeah, exactly. When you're terrible last year, it's and they all sort of put it together and we're like, how are they going to get this log jam out of the way? And they did absolutely nothing. So
and I don't want to say they phased out their big contract guys, meaning Robert Williams III, DeAndre Ayton, and Jeremy Grant. Grant was involved at times. He had some big scoring outputs. I thought Ayton actually rebounded really well for them when they were on their winning streak in March. Williams definitely got phased out. Matisse Thybulle has a player option next year at $11 million. Well, he wasn't really that. He wasn't involved that much until the end.
Of course he'll pick it up. Why would he decline it? There's no way he's getting $11 million in the open.
Well, that's not my point. My point is that did these veterans who are on kind of straggling money contribute? Some did and some didn't. The nucleus that really made it go, in my opinion, was Shaedon Sharpe, Anthony Simons, Avdia on his second team, and also the defensive resurgence of Toumani Camara.
Well, not resurgence, just complete development of the second-year player.
He's almost reminds me of who was that guy that played for Philly? Robert Covington. He kind of reminds me of him.
A couple things they need to figure out is last year they're a great story. They put it all together. Chauncey Billups went from first coach fired to
extension.
Coach MIP. Cronin was supposed to be you need to do something. Well, I did nothing. Then now he looks good. However, next year you have expectations now. So you have ownership. It's like, well, we barely missed the play-in. We expect to make the play-in this time. Yeah, but it's like, did you know who'd missed the play-in? Like Dallas and then Phoenix. Like, you think you're going to be better than them again next year? So it's going to be a lot different with expectations.
Expectations will be higher. That's 100% agreed. They do have depth. They were able to get There were a lot of. Here's the thing about Portland: they were an incredible, fantastic team for the last few years. Where if they had injuries to at the time McCollum and Lillard, they would knew how to shut them down and just drop a bunch of games. And they did it again at the end of this season. And they had a lot of guys that were sort of. They got big numbers like Duop Reith and Rayon Rupert and Bryce McGowan. Like they had guys that made contributions for them in the past few years. Another name that suddenly comes to mind is Jalen Horde. But like
Yeah,
there were guys that just you knew they weren't part of the bigger picture.
but that was
And
last year, which since
mhm,
everybody got injured, it was great to see Duop Reith and Ryan Rupert do
and Jabari
something.
Walker. Yeah,
Now,
Jabari
all of
Walker
a
I think
sudden,
is going to stay in the rotation.
the one question about rotation and everything else is how long do you wait on Shaden Sharp? Next, his fourth year. He was injured his first year, hasn't had that development. So you got Simons, you got Scoot, you got Avdija. You need him to now step it up if you're going to be a piece because shooting is a problem with Portland.
And he actually is a good 3-point shooter. He averaged 2 made
But
threes a
he
game.
hasn't done it. That's the thing is you need more than the little that he's given you.
I think what happened is that they were kind of trading off with him and Scoot at the one. Because also Anthony Simons is still a very good point guard, but he has had injuries. He's missed a lot of time. And when that happens, sometimes they'll play Sharp, who's actually athletic enough to play the three at times. They'll play him as a point guard. And he was sort of trying to hone in all of the different skills that he has, of which Sharp has many skills. He's a great athlete. He's a solid defender. He can make threes, but he hasn't like increased his volume on one thing, like being a defender, like almost like Jalen Suggs did at Orlando. At some point in his career, Jalen Suggs decided, all right, I'm going to be a defender using my athleticism. Sharp hasn't really figured that out yet. He doesn't know what he wants to do, but the talent is absolutely there. He's going to get an extension. Is he going to get it immediately? It's hard to say. I would say that because they're kind of close to that apron because of the money involving Aiton and Simons, they might have to wait until September, October.
I don't think he's going to get one because he's horribly injured and he needs to take that sort of prove it leap. And you're not going to
Well,
think
if it, I see it the other way. If anything's going to happen, I think Simons is going to get moved
Simons
because
will get
he's on the
moved.
last year of his deal.
But see, this team right now is basically just Orlando West. You got
Yeah.
great defense, you got lockdown defenders. You can't shoot threes, and they are like you can't make the next step if you can't shoot threes, and they have problems spacing the floor right now.
Yeah, and that's because of Grant. Because and I'm not saying Grant's like a bad player. He's a good scorer. He just doesn't rebound anymore. All he does is try to fetch for free throws, and he's got so much guaranteed money. He has a player option, 36 million in 2027. So you can't move him. You can buy out DeAndre Ayton's 35 million if you want and stretch it. I don't think they have to. So they have some flexibility, but not as much as Orlando did a couple years ago, where they were like well below the salary cap and they could do whatever they wanted with the extra money they had. Portland's not in that scenario, unfortunately. So you might see a lack of movement by the team, a lot of retaining players, a lot of trades where they just don't make the deal because they don't feel like they're getting off enough money.
So who are we moving on to next?
So for us, we're going to talk about another team in the West, the Spurs. The Spurs missed the playoffs, but I'll say this: they got the deal done for De'Aaron Fox. Anybody can talk about how if there was any collusion involved, but if a player says in free agency they're going to go to a team, you're probably better off just facilitating the trade to that team and getting some return out of it. And that's what happened between the Spurs when Fox said he wanted to go there, and the Kings made the move. Unfortunately, once he got there, about a week or so in, Victor Wembanyama got shut down because he had blood clots in his system. So they were cautious and decided, honestly, I think if they were trying to make a big push, like a title push type of thing, I think Victor would have played. But in this case, I think they were just being
Well, blood clots. No,
careful.
no. He would not have played the same way. Thompson in Detroit didn't play for the almost like a calendar year. It seems.
No, what I'm
And
trying to
then
say is he would have played. He would have eventually come back to play.
Bosch ended his career, and Lillard is the only one who rushed back. And
Yeah.
we'll talk about that team later. But okay, yeah, San Antonio. would have been a lot different if he stayed healthy. And who knows if how that trade would have worked with them all on the floor together.
And what about if Popovich was still there before his stroke? I don't know if the team probably style of play would have been a little different because I thought defensively they were poor. They probably would have been slightly better. Offensively, actually, I thought they were pretty good as a team.
They're right where they are in the rebuild right now. You have Wembayana, you have Castle, who I don't know how
Rookie of the year.
even
Yep.
Chicago or Sacramento couldn't peel him away. You can get anyone you want. You could go for a big star. You could get minor things. However, much like Portland and much like we hear with a lot of these teams, they need a shooter. And Castle is not a 3-point shooter.
You have Vassell.
But he can't. I don't think those two can play together. Which was going to be my next point. Is I think you got to move Vassell or Castle, or you can't just have Castle be a 6-man forever.
Well, I here's my opinion on that one. I think Vassell and Castle can play together. They did it quite a lot down the stretch this season, even though it was mixed results. They were they were just under 500 after the Wembanyama
that was
injury.
because Fox is there. I'm saying
It's Vassell and Fox, and I don't know if they can work.
It's Vassell and Fox. It'll be Castle and Fox. And when you have
Yeah.
Castle and Fox, that spacing is
That's a dangerous team. Yeah, I will say that's a dangerous team because Fox is actually a good defensive player when he's dialed in.
Defensive. Yes, I'm saying on offense, you need that 3-point shooter, that Klay Thompson to kick out and do it. And that's why I said I don't think those two. Yeah, they had to play together. Well, with mixed results. Well, that sort of backs up my point.
They had a class. They had a 22 draft class that included Jeremy Sohan, Malachi Branham, and Blake Wesley. I believe they were all first round picks. For Branham and Wesley, it's going to be tough. They did get more minutes. Branham did have good moments. Wesley, not so much.
No.
Sohan might get the extension.
Sohan he'll get something, and we'll get to that when we get to the season.
I like him. I like Jeremy. A lot of people compare him to Rodman because of the hair.
Oh yeah, just because of the hair.
I think he's a Swiss Army knife. I think he's a poor man's Draymond Green or a poor man's Scotty Barnes.
With San Antonio, let's say next 2-3 years, can you see Keldon Johnson, Vassell, or Harrison Barnes even being on there like 2 years from now?
No, and I'll say this: Barnes. A lot of people remember the game winner he hit over the Warriors. That was kind of like a sort of a banner win for them for that regular season, even though they didn't make the playoffs. But yeah, he's got like 19 million on the last year. He's on an expiring. Keldon Johnson has 2 more years on a descending contract. It's only 17.5 million. That's an easy. You could probably move both of them in the offseason if you had to. Not to the same team, of course. You can't bundle it. You're gonna have to move them elsewhere. But that can easily be done if they want to get really ambitious. Let me ask you about Chris Paul. Do you think he'll just re-sign for 1 more year, or do you think he'll retire?
No, I think he'll probably sign for the veteran minimum for the Lakers or the Clippers. Because
so you don't think Paul's going to retire?
I think he'll want to do 1 more year. I think,
but not in San Antonio.
Well, he complained. Like, I didn't say he complained. He was like, I miss my family. I'm out here by myself. So I could see him being like, look, I'm old. I just want to do 1 year. Let me play close to home.
Well, does he live in Carolina now, or does he live in California?
California.
He lives in California. I was about to think if he still had a house in Carolina, he could just do 1 year with Charlotte and try to
and just be like, I like basketball. I don't want to win.
Tutor a little mellow ball for a year and get out.
So one last thing about San Antonio, which we both failed to mention, with the season-ending injury to Wembanyama, that team had no size. They need to get somebody who can play with him. Like, they need a big man. Like, I think even more than they need a big man, they need a shooter.
And I believe they have more than 1 lottery pick, right?
Yeah. Oh, well, they had Zach Collins. They got rid of him. Zach Collins isn't the answer. They need somebody.
No, Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah, they need somebody to pair up with him. That should be priority.
I'll tell you one guy who's a big, but he's not really a aggressive big, but he's going to stick around, is Sandro Mamukelashvili. He's actually a really good offensive player, if you could believe that. And Champagny is actually a very good 3-point shooter.
But what if they get a high lottery pick? One of those two, or Champagne. Oh, you're nice. Oh, look, we got Ace Bailey. See ya.
Yeah, I can see some changes. I think it'll be a very soft approach. I think a lot of the focus will be going into camp with Mitch Johnson as definitely your head coach, and see if you want to sort of reframe the offense now that and I don't want to say move on from Popovich. Popovich was still a good coach all the way to the end, but the health scares are just too much, and it was time. I think even Pop knew it was time to walk away from it all. Wembanyama, what can be said? 24 and 11, 3.5 free throws made per game, improved his 3-point shooting, almost 4 blocks a game. He would have led the league in blocks had he been eligible, but he wasn't because of the blood clots. Also a steal per game. Just like he could have been MIP, Adam. I'm not even joking.
I know, and we discussed that, and it was like, this is why the award should be for somebody who
Also a ratings getter. So whenever he's whenever he's in a big matchup with a major market team, it's going to be on national television. So Wembanyama has been, I think they've already made the return on investment for Wembanyama, but he's not at the point yet where he's extension eligible. That's next summer. So you got a little bit of room
Well,
to
he'll
do
get a
what you
max
want.
regardless, so it
And
doesn't.
Fox will get a new deal for sure.
Yeah. So, but things are looking up for them. Like I said, they can pick anybody they want. They could go any path they want. They could go big name. They could go small name. They have all the assets in the
But you're
world.
saying go for a center, a backup center, I guess, at the least, behind Wembanyama.
They need a 3-point shooter, and they need a big man who complements Wemby.
We were looking up. Let's look down to the Milwaukee Bucks. This is sad to say. This is a team that was on a title quest. It seemed like they kind of put the pieces together the right way with a 2 superstar lineup with Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard. They obviously, Doc Rivers took over after they fired Adrian Griffin, and they got unlucky. They had a whole postseason where they lost to the Pacers and Giannis didn't play a minute. And then they had a playoff series this year where they lost to the Pacers again, and they had Damian Lillard for maybe a game in 5 minutes because he tore his Achilles.
And it's looking down is not, it's more down in just disappointment of, oh man, that's a shame.
They weren't prone to bad moves. Gosh, the DeLon Wright move backfired. He was a terrible backup point guard and they shipped him out. The Kyle Kuzma trade, that might go down as one of the worst for them.
Why? I think that was a savior trade for them.
He does have a descending salary, but the lack of contribution in the playoffs was very alarming. Adam.
He
pulled a Snell in a playoff game.
But Middleton would have been way much better. That's the thing, is Middleton is old and fell apart really fast. Plus, getting Kuzma lowers their tax bill. We need to go back to their horrible drafting, their inability to. Kuzma, I think, was an improvement on Middleton, who, you got to be on the court, can't be injured.
Yeah.
And just Lillard going out.
I agree about the first round misses that they've had over and over again. I don't know why, but I harken back to one of them being Jordan Nwora a few years ago. But it's to the point where they had to go with second rounders to try to get contributions. And some actually had some nice moments. Ryan Rollins, Andre Jackson Jr., AJ Green. But if you look at Tyler Smith wasn't ready. AJ Johnson, they had to lump into the Middleton deal to get off the money. And AJ Johnson might work out in Washington. And
he wasn't
the only one that worked out was that they traded Marjon Beauchamp for Kevin Porter Jr.
He wasn't ready either, but Beauchamp miss on a 1. AJ Johnson miss on a 1. You can't keep what we hit with Giannis, who was out of nowhere. You can't keep getting these all or nothing first.
Well, the problem is you traded a lot of your firsts in the Drew Holiday deal with New Orleans, and because you were at the tax level because of Drew Holiday and his extension that you signed him to at the time, you had to shed your first rounders when you were trying to win titles. And to their credit, they won one. They won it in 2021.
The question here is they re-signed their GM Horst, and it's just I don't want to say confusing to me, but
it's not confusing to me. But I'll tell you why in a second.
Go ahead.
I think that he basically is down with the rebuild. And if it's a situation where Giannis goes to management and says, you know what, I'm not down with the, I don't like this lineup with Lillard, because Lillard will very, very likely not play a minute in the 25-26 NBA season for the Bucks. And no, they can't get off of Lillard's contract. It's impossible. It's at $54 million next year and $58 million the following year.
And that's why
you got to look at the lineup and bring it to Giannis, because Giannis runs the show, man. This is a 30-point, 12 rebound a game guy, and you got to go, what do you think of this? And it's going to probably have Kuzma involved. They'll have Portis again. Lopez might be gone. They might have to.
Might be gone too. He might, just because he's been taking discounts the past 2 years to stay there.
Well, that's true, but that's what I was about to say. They're going to have to pay a little extra, and they are under the tax. barely, but they might have to pay extra to keep Porter and Trent. And they're going to look at this lineup and they're going to say, look, we can use the taxpayer mid-level exception on some extra player that we're not thinking of yet. Is this good enough for you? And if Giannis says no, you got to blow it up and you can start
But
trade
you
talks.
won't have to. That's the good thing is you can get such a haul for him, and you
Oh
know
God, yeah. If the Lakers called, I mean, the Lakers have to give up what, 5 draft picks
the
and
Lakers
probably
don't have
maybe
5 draft picks. The Lakers
LeBron, or
don't
I'm
have
I'm just talking out loud.
like we had said. Houston will be like, all right, here's Jalen Green, Jabari Smith, Tari Eason. This year's, probably lottery number,
Yeah,
conspiracy lottery number one, and
Dallas might sniff around
four
too.
others.
Yeah.
Like, so they have a ton to off. So the team can rebuild quite quickly and build a thing. But yeah, if Portis goes, um, Brooke Lopez is 37. So
I think he's played his last games there. I
you
also
need a
think that
center like more than anything. They don't even have like backup anything.
the only other thing I was trying to add is that I think Pat Connaughton is going to get bought out on his player option. He'll use the 9 million and then he'll get bought out. So I think we've seen the last of Connaughton. We've seen the last of Lopez. We also possibly may have seen the last
But yeah, if they want to pull a
of
Dallas and just rip
Portis.
the heart out of the franchise, they can reset really quick. It's just,
Mhm.
you it's disappointing. You go all in, you get Lillard going all in, you keep doubling down,
And
tripling
let me
down,
tell you
quadrupling
something.
down.
When they played together, they were good. Like Lillard was averaging 25 points and 7 assists. He was getting to the free throw line a lot. His shooting went down. His shooting percentage was still typical Lillard, well under 50%. But he was still a good player. You just when you're in your 30s, the mid 30s, I don't even know. I want to say he's 34 now. When you tear your Achilles, that's a death blow, man. That's tough.
The Milwaukee Bucks window has just been slammed shut through that injury, but
Yeah.
it's appearing that way, and it's kind of
The only bright spot I'd say for Giannis is that when Lillard was out with the blood clots before, actually, people who don't remember, he had a blood clot issue before he came back, and he may have rushed himself back, and that's what happened with the Achilles tear. But we'll never know. When they played without Damian Lillard for the month of April, they were 6-1. They were actually playing really well. So I wouldn't be shocked at him if Giannis just says, you know what, I'm down with it. If you give me my extra year, my fifth, my before I turn 37, I can see that happening where he just
anything
signs
is
more
possible.
money, you know.
So who we moving on to next?
The Orlando Magic. Orlando had a lot of uh flexibility last year. They made a big deal to try to poach Contavious Caldwell Pope out of Denver. They looked good early, then the injury bug really bit them hard with Wagner and Paulo Banchero. By the way, Paulo certified superstar question mark, you'd say?
He is there.
Yeah, Franz is not there,
Injury
but he's close. But those injuries, the Jalen Suggs injury, and Mo Wagner, Franz's brother, he tore his ACL, and he was probably their best six man. And they got to the playoffs. They had to beat Atlanta to get through the play-in, but they did it, and then they lost to the Celtics kind of easily. Their defense was great. Their offense was terrible.
they made all their money. They made their moves. They made their money. They tried to. They signed KCP. They thought, we're gonna give all these extensions to everybody like Toronto did.
Hmm.
And the issue is we have the exact same problem that we did before. They can't shoot for anything. KCP was a miss. You have a full, I believe, if I'm correct, they have all 15 players under roster next year on under contract. I
Uh,
mean,
they, they're pretty set because I think they gave a guaranteed contract to a player who was a two-way forever named
so
Traveling Queen,
you
right?
made this move thinking he was the last piece, and you're back to square one
Yeah.
because you can't shoot threes, and as good as you are, you need to shoot threes. And injuries, yeah, killed them. But
The one thing they did do that was smart is that they did like a lot of 1+1s that included team options with involving Gary Harris and Gogo Badadzi did get an extension, but it was very, very small. And I thought his contribution as a rebounder and a defender was paramount for them. The only one that was really a head scratcher was, and it's not even Jonathan Isaac. I think Jonathan Isaac signing a new deal was fine because it's a decent. They could probably get off of it really easily based off of incentives because of his injury history. The Jalen Suggs extension was very expensive, 5 years, 150 million. Yes, he's a very good guard. He's a very good defender. I just don't think he was worth rookie max. And then the Wendell Carter poison pill that starts in 2026 where you have to you're committing to him for at least 2 more years at 20 million a year. I didn't like that at all. So they kind of handcuffed themselves money wise.
They're out of money now. They made all
Right.
these
They're
deals.
very close to the tax. They're right around 200 million.
Well,
So
they're
essentially they're past it.
because
Yeah.
next year Paolo gets his max deal, whether it be
Oh, that'll be for those who this is the 2022 rookie classes time where they can negotiate extensions. Paulo will be literally noon on June 30th. Like they will, or
it'll
midnight June,
be
whatever it is. Yeah.
the second it opens, it'll be signed, which is
He will get
that's
the
what you're
max, and
supposed
he
to.
might actually get the rookie, the rare rookie super max because he might be all NBA next year.
With him and Wagner and Suggs, you've run out of money. So as much as we like Isaac, as much as we like Wendell Carter,
You got to move
Gary,
him.
KCP, like you got to start moving. Yes, they have assets. Yes, they could do a good thing, but you need 3-point shooting, and you need to figure it out right now because it's hard to tell because injuries took this team out and they never got a rhythm.
They had moments where they could play more people because of the injuries in front of the core guys. So Anthony Black played a lot and he had good moments, but he also had bad ones. Cole Anthony the same. He had games where he lit up off the bench, and then he had games like in the Celtics series where you didn't even know he was on the team. Tristan Da Silva was okay. I think Jet Howard project has run its course. They could probably move him for nothing. They were so bad at point guard, they had to pick up Corey Joseph off the street. They definitely can improve their bench. Jamal Mosley is likely to come back for another year, but I can guarantee you because they were 29th in points per game, 30th in 3-pointers and 3-point field goal percent. Assists also, they were dead last. They have to find a way to improve the offense. That's going to be number one priority going into the offseason.
So they're looking up. It's hard because allegedly Toronto is also looking up. Philly should be way back ahead of you. And if you want to stay in that second tier level, which I don't think they have it right now, they still need another
Not with that cast of characters.
Exactly.
They'll probably have to move some things around. They can do it. I just think that the Wendell Carter poison pill is going to be hard to move.
Oh, they can move him. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
Anybody's movable these days.
And I think, is that one of the teams that has a weird issue involving their draft pick? Or they might get the Denver pick from the Aaron Gordon deal. I can't remember.
I don't think there's any issues with their picks. It's they don't have space on their roster for anybody right now, but that's
you have to trade away a first rounder like a Jet Howard to move him, or I know they like Caleb Houston at times because he was one of their only 3-point shooters they had, but if you get a first round pick who can shoot threes, you're gonna have to cut people.
You gotta go for him, and it's a good story to see these bad teams finally come out of their slumber and just bad basketball, because they were down in the terrible last year. Regular season good, the playoffs hit. Well, we don't know what to do, and without having Suggs, and you can't shoot it.
I didn't talk about Wagner much. Really, really good player. Averaged 24, 6, and 5. I think he just needs to stop settling for these pull-up jumpers in the mid-range. And if he's going to do that, he needs to really practice it in the offseason where that is an automatic shot. Because if he does that, he would take the leap along with Paulo. And now we're talking about a 2-superstar lineup that's really hard to beat. But they're not there yet. Okay, let's talk about the Detroit Pistons. We just talked about a team that kind of had a turnaround over the previous year with Orlando. This one had a very, very dramatic turnaround from a really bad Monty Williams year to a superstar year, all-star year out of Cade Cunningham, and a lot of additions that got into the playoffs.
Finally, a feel-good story. Detroit, terrible for so many years, set the record in futility last year. Everybody came back and they blossomed into not only just we figured they'd be a play-in team, but they made the playoffs and they gave the Knicks a hell of a run, and then got kind of screwed by the refs. But kind
Yeah,
of.
there was some bad calls that didn't go their way in like the game 6. Uh the narrative that kind of came out from their success under JV Bickerstaff, it was his first year coaching them after he was let go by the Cavs, is that they were sort of a physical team, that they were young and didn't know better, and that they were able to throw their bodies at people. They got very good veteran contributions out of Malik Beasley, who was one of the best 3-point shooters in the league, Tim Hardaway Jr., who was basically dumped by the Dallas Mavericks, and Tobias Harris, who they had acquired in free agency. They kind of gave him a balloon payment for 2 years, and they do have flexibility as well. Even when they acquired Dennis Schroeder was an expiring contract.
They made solid moves all around.
hmm
Tobias
And they could,
Harris
and you know what's
extension.
scary about that team? They could have been better because Jaden Ivey was out with a broken leg.
But here's where it changes now. We mentioned this with Portland. You have expectations now, and you can't make stupid moves. You can't go to the panic. We need DeMar DeRozan. He's our missing piece, like saying it like Sacramento did. You need to sort of just ride the course, get players who fit the team. And basically, it comes down to like, you must at all costs sign Beasley. Without
Yeah,
him,
I
that
and
team would have been
and
different.
they can't make stupid moves, but they can make moves because even with the additions they made in free agency last year, because they were at the salary floor last year, they're at the salary floor again. They're right around 130 million in guaranteed salary, so they have a lot of room. They could spend like up to 24 million extra before they even reach the salary cap. There, a lot of that might have to get tied into a Jaden Ivey extension
Jaden Ivey
because
needs money. Jalen Duran needs
he
money.
does, but because of his injury and because he struggled his first year in the league, I don't know if how much he'll get. We'll see. If I had to guess, it'll be somewhere in the vein of what Jalen Suggs got. But
That's
Asar
super
Thompson,
high. I
it
saw.
is. It's a
Yep.
high amount.
So Thompson came back from the blood clots, came
He
back
looked great.
well, and his improvement and just development, like watching him, is a pleasure to watch. They now have they got their swagger back. They got they're feisty. It's not just a sad franchise of oh it's bad and they're going to be
Yeah.
bad. It's grit and grind and the Detroit basketball with Isaiah Stewart getting to every fight he possibly can. Um,
What about Duran?
you need to pay him. He was a complete, almost like double machine for that team. Like
He was, and
his
he was second
defense.
in field goal percentage because literally everything's a dunk. There is one obvious, very obvious glaring hole is that he's a terrible free throw shooter. So if you hack him, you can almost take him out of the game. Beef Stew is an enforcer. His salary's not bad. Ron Holland II has come along. The problem is his plus minus is terrible. So he needs to work on
He
his
was a
efficiency.
development from the get go. You knew he'd be a
hmm
project, so this comes as no surprise.
Yeah. Fontecchio, he might
Bye
be
bye.
gone. He wasn't really in the rotation. Paul Reed, we'll see. He has another year. All these guys kind of got extra years because they had so much cap room to play with. And that was the only way to lure them to Detroit because they were so bad the year before. Now teams might actually want to go to Detroit. That's going to be a bit of a difference. Cunningham, awesome player. I saw a stat that I think he was third or fourth in the league in triple doubles.
He's fun to watch.
Very
He's
good.
not like Anthony Edwards level of
No,
dominator, but it
that's a guy who when he gets past, like when he goes under the 3-point line, he's dangerous. He can make pretty much all the jump shots. He can make the hook shots. If he goes in aggressively, he's going to dunk it because he's very athletic, even though he has had some injuries. The injuries haven't hampered his athleticism. And he's blossoming just at the time that the rookie max that he signed already kicks in. So perfect timing for Detroit. You just wonder about what they can, if they have to juggle the extension money between Jalen Duran and Jaden Ivey, and how much money can Malik Beasley get if they have to extend him. Yeah, so they have flexibility. The thing for me when it comes to Detroit is that they need to stop turning the ball over so much. They need to just be a little more conservative on offense. Stop playing so fast.
as opposed to playing horribly slow with
Monty.
Monty.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's you got kids who want to run, so let them run and figure it out. And
hmm
the last second squanders that happens with young teams. Let's just wrap them up with a nice feel good story that after how many years that we've had them in the basement? They're
They've been
finally
bad.
out.
They had one good year since we've done the podcast, and that was the year they had Blake Griffin and Luke Kennard and KCP. I remember that was the only year they were actually good.
Moving
You know,
on.
we're gonna go to Tinseltown. We're gonna talk about the LA teams back to back. Let's start with the LA Clippers. The Clippers it was very rare. Usually they lose Kawhi Leonard halfway through the season or late in the season. This time they were able to get Kawhi Leonard back late in the season, and he was healthy. The problem was they ran into a Nuggets team that was equal in terms of win-loss record, in terms of talent level, and it was very good basketball. But when it got to the seventh game, the Clippers were the road team, and they got thrashed on the road in the game 7.
So this is a tale of sort of two sides of the coin for me. On one side, considering the expectations of the Clippers of you had this double tax lottery team with no lottery picks, just a complete what if, like what if they all stayed healthy, but they never did. You send Paul George far away. You
Yep.
get back middling pieces for him, like Derek Jones, a Chris Dunn, and you build a team. And considering everyone expected them to be like in the lottery, far down below everybody, the fact that they made the playoffs and not the play in,
Mm-hmm.
nice.
And that was dramatic because they had to beat the Warriors on the road in the last game of the regular season, the only one of consequence to do it. The problem is, I think the fact that they had to play that competitive game that went to overtime and their age, because they are older with Kawhi, James Harden, Norman Powell, Zubac, Bogdanovich. They've been around the block, Adam, so they didn't have that much legs. Then they had to play an ultra competitive 7-game series, and they just ran out of gas.
But
James Harden is James Harden. We talk about it every year. It doesn't bear repeating. Excellent regular season point guard, can explode at times scoring wise, great assist guy. But when it gets nitty gritty in the playoffs, you just can't rely on him.
correct, and there was really nobody. I mean, once you run into the buzzsaw of Jokic, it's
Yeah, Kawhi looked great at times in the playoffs. He
he
did.
did, but the
He had the
age
shooting
is,
touch.
unfortunately, it's the best days are behind him. But it
Mm-hmm.
was good to see him in the playoffs. It's good to see them back. Problem is, with no money and no capital, you
Yeah.
got to run this team back, and it's just like
And
that's what
I
we
don't
want.
see them jumping back into the tax. Ballmer is I think Ballmer is one of the only good owners in sports, where he actually designed an arena with they call it the wall, but it's basically a free throw distraction. It's sweet. And he basically is a basketball fan who knows basketball. And when he bought the team in 2013, or 14, which is it's a relief. The problem for Ballmer is that even though he spent so much luxury tax on a team that did not go to the finals, that I just don't see him diving back in and trying to make a big addition and say, you know what, we're one piece away. Let's try to.
Well,
I don't
that's
see that.
he learned. He
Hmm.
tried. He went all in. That all in
It
he
didn't work out.
lost. It was nice that he what it was like 150 people he shipped up from California. He got secondary tickets from the Nuggets and
Hmm.
shipped these season tickets. Like that's good. It's not Dolan kicking legends out and then banning fans for
Yeah, and
criticizing them.
yeah, I forgot to mention this. This is the first year that they played in the Intuit Dome, an absolutely beautiful arena. They have their own place in Inglewood. Zubac already signed an extension before the season started, and that was smart because he had one of his best years. Now he starts at like a $20 million salary for the next 3 years. Bogdanovich is tough. He does have a team option after next season. Derek Jones Jr. at the MLE, good pickup. He started a lot. Nick Batum on the biannual exception. I think he'll stick around for a second year. Beauchamp, probably no future there. Amir Coffey, probably no future there. I think the key for the Clippers is they got to get younger. They're going to have to get more aggressive in the draft.
They gotta have actual draft scouts finally again.
Yeah, like if they
After
have draft capital, which I'm not sure about, I think they're going to have
they
to make some
don't,
swings.
I don't think they owe it to the
No,
Oklahoma
but
City Thunder. I
you
think it's
might
a
be able
smart.
to do something like trade Chris Dunn for a first or something like that.
It's not even that. Let's look at Toronto. You had
Mhm.
Mogbo, you had Battle, they hit on second round. You
And the
had
Clippers didn't. Yeah.
Christie with the Lakers. second round. Reeves, undrafted or
He was an undrafted free agent, yes.
yeah. So you need to get the players are out there. And even in like this week draft, Jalen Wells for Memphis, second round pick, completely lit it up.
Right.
There's people out there. They need to now invest money in finding these people because it's nice to say again, the Clippers aren't a disappointment. The Clippers will buy in on them on paper, and then their bodies are all made of paper, so it just crumbled sadly.
And they also have one of the best, and they already extended this guy, but they got one of the best coaches in the league in Tyronn Lue, like a guy who strategically is just he's gonna try to figure out a way to beat you, even if he doesn't hold all the cards. Ben Simmons, do you think he'll come back?
No.
What about Drew Eubanks? Can they move him?
He's low money anyway, so he doesn't.
Yeah, $5 million.
He's not a needle mover, so it doesn't really matter. Ben Simmons, wherever he goes, he's just going to be a minimum deal anyways. So I don't know if he just might be. I'll go back to Australia. I'll keep my money and just go my merry way.
Yeah, I think a big part of this is can they move off the Bogdanovich money? It's going to be tough.
They need him because they got rid of Terrence Mann, and you need a secondary. He was spotty, but he picked up at the end, kind of.
Yeah, the only hope there is that one of their rookie guys they actually played a lot, or second-year player, Jordan Miller, if he kind of makes a leap, then maybe that'll make Bogdanovich expendable. But that's a reach. Like that might be a bridge too far. Dunn, it became a really good defensive guard. That's basically what he became, and he's found a good home there. Harden's Harden. He has a player option. Pretty sure he will enact the player option.
No, he will opt out. They'll give him a 2-year deal to line up with Kawhi's.
Oh, so you think he'll opt out and just sign for more? Is what
2-year deal, more or less, but it will align with Kawhi's deal, I believe.
Kawhi ends at 26. He doesn't have a player option at all. It's a $50 million salary in 2026.
Kawhi has 2 more years.
That's the end.
Therefore, Harden will opt out and get a 2-year deal. Therefore, they can wipe them both out.
And Powell might want to negotiate. He was on track for 6th man of the year along with Pritchard before he had an injury midway through. They're a good team. They're just hamstrung still by the tax limit and the boogeyman of having to pay tax and never getting to the finals, and Ballmer not wanting to do that. And let's talk about the LA Lakers now.
I was just going to say, on the flip side, you have not one of the best coaches. You have a team at the tax limit again due to one player who's 41 years old, and all he has to do is I'll take 40. That gives you 20 million to get.
They have something worse than that, Adam. Their superstar is fat. They're never going to be great with a fat superstar.
Well, they lost their defensive stalwart, so all you have is a lazy guy who just wants to drink.
The story of the season with the Lakers is that with LeBron and AD and ancillary parts with JJ Redick as a fresh new coach, they had okay moments, but their ceiling was not the highest. Then they are the recipient. They basically had an angel drop into their hands like mistletoe for Luka Doncic in exchange for Anthony Davis and giving up only 1 first-round pick. Like, unbelievable. But their ceiling for the rest of that season was still not very high because defensively they were going to be very weak. You didn't know what Luka Doncic's physical condition was, and you knew that time was running out on LeBron James. LeBron claimed after the fact, I mean, take it for what it's worth, that he injured his knee in the Wolves series where they got eliminated. I honestly just think he's just done. Like, I just think that I think next year is the last year for LeBron James.
But again, all it takes is LeBron saying, I'll take 25 million less. That allows DeRozan to come over.
I don't think he's going to do that.
But I'm just in general, like last year, he would be like, oh, I would have taken less had this happened.
I think he's going to enact the $52 million player option. That'll be it at 41.
Like, okay, you got your son in. The unfair.
Bronny was bad. Let's be very real now. We don't have to do hot takes. I know that we talk about Bronny more than fucking Bill Belichick's girlfriend, but Bronny was bad. Bronny was a bad basketball player.
The problem is that he's a second, 5 picks to the end. Like, those guys don't even get mentioned, and we're mentioning him every game, what he's doing. The unfair media attention did not help.
No, it didn't.
We had said at the beginning of the year, this team needs size. You have lack of size. How far can you go? You trade really your only big man. You try to sign Alex Len and realize he has nothing left. And
They wanted Mark Williams, but I don't know what happened. But I guess they just got cold feet because they didn't like something, so they
no,
claimed
they
him.
got cold feet because the word is they gave up a first for him.
And they claimed, so they said, "Oh, you failed your physical." When the truth is, if you watch Mark Williams play in Charlotte, he didn't fail his physical at all. That's bullshit.
Yeah, it was complete. You guys overpaid for that.
I
What were
think a
you
big
guys thinking?
part of what happened between, because regular season they had good moments, versus a 5 game like a gentleman sweep against the Wolves. I think a big part there with the Wolves, one that was talked about constantly was the lack of rebounding, which came to haunt them against Rudy Gobert. The other one was that Austin Reeves, who was a 20 point per game scorer, 6 assists a game guy in the regular season, he did not play well at all against the Wolves.
And then the coach decided he didn't feel like making changes.
Mm-hmm.
If
And
your
he
things
was,
aren't working, you can't just.
Reddick's inexperience as a head coach showed. Like, he threw out there Maxi Kleber. Maxi Kleber hadn't played competitive basketball in 4 months. Why are you doing that?
Because you got nothing else to do. But they're the Lakers, so of course they're going to be tied to the Giannis talk somehow. Even though they have
Yep.
nothing to offer, they'll be tied to every superstar. They'll tie to everything. And it just comes down to, does LeBron want to play? Yes.
Mm-hmm. I think so, especially with, and I hate to say this, but especially with the new TV contract with NBC and Amazon coming in, they're going to win as many LeBron games as possible for to
Yes,
boost
but
their ratings.
also he created this.
Mm-hmm.
It's his fault. We, talked about Bronny and how
Yeah.
he's not that good, and they're talking about him every game. You did that by putting him on your team and said, "I want him on your team." You can't help but feel bad for him because his dad I just want to play with my son, and
He
then this whole media circus around him.
The one good thing about LeBron was that when Luca first got there, LeBron had to be more conservative with his shot selection, and he was very efficient. Like, there was a point where I think he was shooting 58% for like a few weeks. Then I think physically he was wearing down. He had to get like a plasma treatment of some sort. He missed the All-Star game at the last second. And he decided to do it the day of the All-Star game because I think what happened is he duped Silver into thinking he was going to play in it, and then he said, "Nah, I'm not going to do that." But and he averaged 35 minutes a game, so he didn't want to come off the court. The thing for Luka is that the move was so shocking that even I think LeBron knew something, and Rich Paul knew something, but I don't think they were completely clued in. And also, the Lakers finally got a move that didn't involve, oh, how does this affect LeBron? This didn't have nothing to do with LeBron. This just has to do with the future of the franchise in terms of, oh, we got another superstar in the legacy of our franchise, and we can move on from LeBron James when he's finished. That's kind of what Luka can do. Luka was awesome at times for the Lakers. He did look a little slow. He looked a little slow and out of shape.
Didn't they all? So think of everyone who's in the Olympics. Didn't they all sort of like take a little?
I mean, look at jeez. I mean, Tatum barely played. He didn't look good in the play. Like, there were some guys that just seemed to run out of gas, in my opinion.
And
So
LeBron at 40 years old, of course, LeBron's supposed to run out of gas.
yeah, I think LeBron and Luka work well together. I don't think they mesh well perfectly. Like, it's not like Tatum and Brown. Like, I don't think they mesh well perfectly. It's one where it's your turn and my turn. Reeves is a big part of what makes them successful. I think Rui Hachimura's got a nice home there. They have a player option for Dorian Finney-Smith at 15 million. He could actually opt out of that and probably get a little more, but it's up. We'll see. Jared Vanderbilt's still there. Gabe Vincent, 11 million is a lot for him. I would move off of that, and I would move off of the Maxi Kleber money too.
They have ambitious goals as they do every year, so we'll see what GM LeBron
And I hope for
team.
Dalton Connect he finds a future. I do. Because that was a really weird situation for him, thinking he was going to get traded to Charlotte, and then it's like, nope, trade Knicks. You're still here.
Yep. And now finally is the big mystery question, the big question mark, the big kind of everything will go through this team next year because yes, it was a great story. Yes, you're regular season champions because you went higher than everyone else. Then, oh yes, the playoffs come and teams are different in the playoffs, and you got kind of, I don't want to say smoked,
You're
but
talking about the Houston Rockets.
I'm
Yeah,
getting
you could talk about any playoff team and, and with that idea because there's a lot of teams that got bombarded when people expected them to win. They were a 2 seed. Their defense was awesome. Emi Udoka, I thought, really did a good job. Amen Thompson, he was weird. He took a leap in the second half of this year, and then he took another leap in the playoffs where it was like, oh my God, I think Amen Thompson might be their best player.
so now any trade, any blockbuster trade, whether it be
Untouchable.
Durant, Giannis, Zion, has to go through Houston because Houston has so many pieces. They almost have too many now. They got
Yeah,
so
Jabari Smith struggled with minutes at times because he had an injury. When he came back, it's like, yeah, but Tari Eason is making threes, and Cam Whitmore is
Cam
not
Whitmore is
playing poorly.
angry that he's not
Yeah,
playing. You got
right.
Reed Shepard as number 3 pick, literally getting DNPs
Because
every
of Jalen
game.
Green. Let's just say this, okay? We talked about this a lot in the regular season because it happened right before the season tipped off. About Jalen Green got a 2+1 at around 35, 30 to 35 million a year, 2 years and an extra year for a player option, and Shengun got 4+1. I, I don't I don't think in hindsight they like made the right decision or the wrong decision. I think they just had concerns about Green's efficiency, and that proved itself in the playoffs because he played
Well,
very poorly against the
we had
Warriors.
said how it's an interesting strategy because look at Orlando. You give Wagner and you give Suggs
All the money.
all the
Yep.
money at the same time for the amount of years. You tied your horse is tied to that cart for 4 years, 5 years, whatever. It's tied in for a long time. Whereas this, all right, we got 2 max guys. We can get off one at a 2 year mark. We can review and see where they are. If
And
Green
let me be
takes the
clear. And let me be clear. The regular season, Jalen Green looked awesome. He had some great moments. He just stunk in the playoffs. And I think what it was is that defensively, the Warriors made sure Green was never comfortable. It was really you got to do it inside. That's why Steven Adams had so much success. Steven Adams has so much success in the playoffs that I think they're going to have to keep him because he's an unrestricted free agent,
and Memphis just dumped him for nothing because they
right?
didn't want to pay him. And well, you're an injury, so we need to shed your salary.
Yep. You need
It
size, you know.
They have again expectations as you now have to compete and you need to now add that missing piece this year. You can't run it back with this team like Oklahoma City kind of like let's just get
Yeah, but you
Caruso, let's make a
can't
little
move
deal.
Dylan Brooks's money. He's got 2 more years at 20 million. You believe in Reed Shepard, but you're not moving Jalen Green. That is, like you keep alluding to, two things. One, the team option is turned down for Fred VanVleet, and they work out something where he takes less, and they can use the mid-level exception to sign somebody, or a big trade involving Giannis, or give me whatever random name, Kevin Durant,
I
something like that.
expect that to happen anyways. I expect Van Fleet not to be picked up at was it 42 or 45.
No, but I think he's going to stay in Houston. That's
Yeah,
what I'll
you
say.
could bring him back at 300, 110. It's a
Hmm.
lot better that anything is a lot better. But
Yeah, because
yeah,
they're like right below the first apron. So what they can do is, if they get Van Vliet for like 10 million less in salary, that gives you the extra 10 million to get to use the MLE. But after that, you can't really, or the taxpayer MLE. But before that, you can't really do much after that. Like they're not going to be able to make all these additions. Their draft picks are going to be a godsend, but you know, Reed
they
Shepard
have
barely played.
Phoenixes,
True, but remember they're at a point now where you could probably Rafal Stone could hit right on these picks, but are they going to get the playing time? That's going to be the problem.
which means absolutely nothing. So you can't hit if maybe Reed Shepard is the perfect pick. Yeah, but if
Yeah,
there's no way on the court, we'll never know, and you have to be shipped out, and you'll be
and
a
they
superstar
can
elsewhere.
also get off the 8 million for Jock Landell because that was a team option, so they can get off of that. But and also I think we've seen the last of the Jay Sean Tate era. And I feel like Jay Sean Tate's been there since Harden was traded. I don't know why. They have a bright future, man. Their defense was really good. Their offense was rickety. They weren't a good 3-point shooting team, but they could rebound the ball. Alperen Şengün, let me ask you this: like, where do you think his peak is as a big man in the NBA? Do you think he can be better than a Zubac type, or do you think he can take another level and be at the level of a Jokic?
No, Jokic is a one person. Um, I don't want to say just he. There will be not another Jokic. He is a unicorn. Zubac, yeah, there's nothing to say you can't. Don't forget, he's only this is his fifth year.
Şengün, yeah, he was drafted in 21.
So
So yeah.
you're developing still. There's still an upside to him. Zubac, he's peaked.
hmm
Hartenstein, who is now on his third wind in Oklahoma City, yeah, he's peaked.
And he's better than
Şengün,
Rudy Gobert. I'll say that he's better. He's a better player than Gobert is.
Gobert is also at the end of his line too. So
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with Şengün being your anchor.
I think he's at. I think he got not the max, but close in terms of the extension that he got. Like it was 5 for 220. I think the max at the time was what Cade got, which was 5 for 225. But he could get all NBA, which is going to enact it to be a super rookie. We'll see if they have to pay more because of Şengün really busting out this year. The one problem, obviously, for Şengün is his free throw shooting. He's a very poor free throw shooter.
All right. So
So,
this is the group of just, the and the rest. They are
mhm.
maybe a move away, maybe a two moves away, maybe a lot of moves away, but they're not trending down towards the basement. This is a nice, solid group where you can
No,
say, I don't see anyone going down to the next tier.
I can also see some of these teams involved in very large blockbuster trades. I can see that.
Got it.
Milwaukee,
With San Antonio, we
Houston,
mentioned
Orlando.
San
I can see
Antonio,
it.
Houston, Detroit,
hmm
all could make a big splash if they want to. This is a group to look out for.
hmm
And like I said, it's nice to see teams we've had in the basement for so many years because we've done this for 11 years now. And Orlando, like, finally last year got out of the
Yeah,
basement.
and
And
Detroit had the worst luck, but this group also shows how important hitting on your top pick is. Orlando struggled for years. They got a they got a number one overall pick and they hit on it. So did Detroit. And Victor obviously was I mean, that was a formality when he went number one and the Spurs took him. Like if you get that number one pick and you cultivate something around it, you can do some damage in the league. You can be on the verge of being an elite team. And also Portland. Portland was a pleasant surprise.
all right. So for Andrew Reich, I'm Adam Murray. Have a good one.
Take care, y'all.